Rushing into the clinic, the man cradled what he thought was a shivering puppy. As the vet peered closely, his face turned pale with shock. "This isn't any puppy I've seen before," he exclaimed, his voice trembling with urgency and curiosity, compelling everyone to lean in closer. John was no stranger to the rustling and whispers of the forest, but today, a peculiar squeaking mixed with soft munching sounds stopped him in his tracks. As he navigated through the dense underbrush, his curiosity mounted with each cautious step towards the noise that didn't belong. Peering through the last thicket of branches, he spotted a small, trembling form nestled in the fallen leaves. What he saw puzzled him. A creature that resembled a puppy, but with an almost bare pinkish skin and a disproportionately large head. Its large, mournful eyes seemed to plead silently for help. His heart twinged with a mix of concern and wonder. The forest, usually a place of solace and familiar sights, had presented him with a mystery wrapped in fur. Despite its weak and frail appearance, there was a resilience in its gaze that struck a chord within him. The puppy's peculiar features made him question whether it might be one of those rare, hairless breeds he'd heard about but never seen. John reached out tentatively, his hands gently cradling the vulnerable creature. It shivered at his touch, the small body cold and oddly rough against his palms. As he wrapped it in his jacket, he whispered soothing words, trying to calm the tiny heart fluttering against his own. "It's going to be okay," he murmured, though the uncertainty in his voice betrayed his anxiety. Was this truly a puppy? And more importantly, why was it abandoned in the vastness of the forest? With a newfound resolve, John decided that no matter what mysteries lay hidden within this little creature's origins, he couldn't leave it to face the perils of the forest alone. As he carried the puppy away from the whispering trees, the fading sunlight slanted through the leaves, casting a golden glow that seemed to momentarily halo the two newfound companions. His steps quickened towards home, spurred by a determination to unravel the mystery cradled in his arms. As John crossed the threshold of his home, the warm light and familiar sense of their cozy living space enveloped him, a stark contrast to the dimming forest. He carefully set the wrapped creature on the soft rug by the fireplace, Sarah's knitted throws and scattered books around it adding to the snug ambience. Yet, the serenity of the setting was disrupted by the urgency of the situation. Sarah, who had been tending to a pot of stew, turned off the stove and rushed over at the sight of John cradling the mysterious guest. Her eyes widened in a mix of surprise and concern. "Oh, John, what have you brought home now?" she exclaimed, kneeling beside him to get a closer look at the trembling bundle in his jacket. Together, they tried to coax the animal to eat or drink. Sarah warmed some milk and poured it into a shallow dish, but the creature only sniffed it hesitantly before turning away. They tried again with bits of soft bread and then some minced meat, each attempt met with the same disinterest. The animal's refusal to eat anything added layers of worry between the couple's exchanges. "It doesn't seem to like anything we give it. What do we do now?" Sarah's voice was tinged with frustration and worry as she stroked the creature's large head gently. The setting sun threw long shadows across the room, mirroring the growing despair of the scene. John watched the puppy's sides heave with quick, shallow breaths, its condition evidently worsening. The creature's mysterious allure had now transformed into a pressing puzzle, each passing moment raising more concerns than answers. The cozy room, usually a place of relaxation and laughter, now hosted silent, anxious glances between the couple as they grappled with their next steps. As the evening wore on and the puppy's breathing grew even more laboured, the weight of their decision pressed upon them. "We need to get it help, professional help," John finally declared, determination settling over his features. Sarah nodded in agreement, her own face set with resolve. Without another word, they wrapped the weak animal more securely in a blanket and hurried to their car. The drive to the nearby city's 24-hour veterinary clinic was quiet, the urgency of their mission cutting through the calm of the night. As the headlights cut through the darkness, the couple braced themselves, hoping they were not too late to save their puzzling new guest. The car's engine roared to life, shattering the night stillness as John pressed the accelerator, the urgency palpable in every turn and acceleration. Sarah cradled the puppy in her lap, the blanket wrapped snugly around it, her hands trembling as she felt its faint breaths against her skin. Every so often, she whispered reassurances, more for her own comfort than for the puppy's. "Hang in there, little one. We're almost there," she murmured, her voice a soft echo in the rush of the speeding car. John's gaze flickered frequently from the road to the rearview mirror, watching Sarah and the puppy. His jaw was set, his focus sharpened by the gravity of their mission. This wasn't just any rescue. This was a fight against time, a test of his resolve. The normally familiar roads seemed endless, each mile stretching longer as the urgency gnawed at him. As the city lights came into view, the veterinary clinic's neon sign was a beacon in the darkness. John swung into the parking lot, barely stopping the car before he was out of the driver's seat. He rushed to the passenger side to help Sarah, who carefully lifted the still form of the puppy. They hurried through the automatic doors, the blast of sterile, cold air from the clinic hitting them as they entered. The receptionist barely had time to look up before the urgency in their faces prompted her to call for immediate assistance. Within moments, a veterinarian arrived, his expression turning from professional concern to startled surprise as he saw the creature in their arms. "What on earth do you have here?" the vet exclaimed, his voice a mixture of intrigue and concern. The seriousness of his tone and the quick beckoning for them to follow him to the examination room left John and Sarah with a mix of fear and hope as they hurried after him, the fate of the mysterious puppy now in the hands of the vet. In the sterile examination room, the fluorescent lights hummed faintly overhead, casting a stark white glow over the stainless steel tables and medical instruments neatly arranged around. The veterinarian, a seasoned professional with a keen eye for detail, quickly donned his gloves, his movements precise and practiced. He gestured for Sarah to lay the wrapped puppy on the examination table. As she did so, the vet leaned in, his brow furrowed in concentration as he began his assessment. With a gentle touch, he examined the creature, palpating its tiny frame and examining its unique features, the large eyes, elongated muzzle, and unusually textured skin. His experienced hands moved deftly, yet his usual brisk pace slowed, his curiosity piqued by the anomaly before him. "How long have you had this animal?" he asked, his tone urgent but measured, his eyes not leaving the creature. "Just found it today, in the forest," John replied, his voice tense as he watched every move the vet made. Sarah stood by, wringing her hands, her eyes wide with worry. The vet continued his examination, using a small light to check the puppy's eyes and mouth, noting the peculiarities that set it apart from any typical canine he had ever treated. His usual calm demeanor gave way to a blend of fascination and concern. The room filled with the soft beeping of the heart rate monitor connected to the puppy, the sound oddly loud in the otherwise quiet room. After a few minutes, he straightened up, pulling off his gloves with a snap. "I must admit, this is quite unusual," he said, turning to face John and Sarah fully. "Its anatomical structure doesn't fully match any domesticated dog breeds or wild canids I'm familiar with. The size of the eyes, the skin texture, even the body proportions are extraordinary." He paused, his expression serious as he considered the implications. "We need to run some tests. Blood work, maybe even a scan. I've never seen anything like this before." His voice carried a mix of excitement and solemnity, reflecting the gravity of the discovery. John and Sarah exchanged a glance, their anxiety momentarily overshadowed by the vet's infectious curiosity. They nodded in agreement, their consent implicit as they braced themselves for more answers. As the vet prepared the necessary equipment for further testing, the air in the room thickened with anticipation. The initial shock of the vet's reaction morphed into a driving need to understand the true nature of their mysterious find. This unexpected turn of events promised revelations that could change everything they thought they knew about their quiet forest and the creatures within. The vet's statement hung in the air, igniting a spark of curiosity that was hard to ignore. He had never seen such an animal before, and that alone was enough to turn a simple act of kindness into the beginning of an extraordinary adventure. John and Sarah settled into the dimly lit observation room adjacent to the clinic's laboratory, where the mysterious puppy was now placed in a small, transparent cage. Monitors beeped softly in the background, tracking the creature's vital signs as the couple huddled in the sparse chairs provided, their eyes rarely straying from the tiny form inside the cage. Throughout the night, they took turns keeping a close watch, the soft hum of medical equipment a constant reminder of the gravity of their situation. Each movement the puppy made was met with hopeful glances and silent prayers. Sarah draped her coat over her knees, shivering slightly, not just from the clinic's chilled air, but also from the roller coaster of emotions she'd been enduring since John had walked through their door with the creature. "I never thought our evening would end up like this," John whispered during one of the quieter moments, his voice low and reflective. He gazed at the puppy, its breathing now steadier than before, a slight improvement that brought a small comfort. "Neither did I," Sarah replied, squeezing his hand. "Do you think it'll make it through the night?" Her voice was tinged with hope, but the uncertainty was evident. John looked at her, his face shadowed yet resolute. "It has to," he said firmly, the weight of their decision to save this creature now fully realized. They shared a look of mutual resolve, the kind forged in moments of crisis, a silent pact to see this through, no matter the outcome. As dawn approached, the first light of morning filtered through the blinds, casting lines across the sterile floor. The couple, weary but vigilant, noticed a subtle change in the puppy's condition. It began to stir more frequently, its eyes opening slightly to reveal a glimmer of awareness. The creature even attempted a weak stretch within the confines of its cage, an action that, although small, was a significant improvement from the listless form they had brought in. Just as they began to allow themselves a cautious relief, a phone call broke the early morning stillness. John answered it, his voice low but clear. "Yes, this is he. We're at the clinic now." He listened intently, his brow furrowing as he passed the phone to Sarah with a nod. Sarah's conversation was brief, but her expression shifted from concern to intrigue as she spoke. "Yes, we would be honoured to help with your research," she said into the receiver. Hanging up, she turned to John, her eyes wide with a mix of excitement and nervousness. "That was Professor Robert, a leading zoologist. He heard about our find and thinks it might be a rare species, possibly never documented here before. He and a team want to come and study it, to learn more." The couple exchanged a hopeful glance. The mysterious puppy's struggle for survival was transforming into an opportunity for discovery, drawing the interest of the scientific community. This unexpected turn not only offered a new chance at life for the puppy, but also opened a door to an adventure that John and Sarah could never have anticipated. As the clinic's doors swung open later that day, a small team of zoologists, led by Professor Robert, entered with a sense of purpose and excitement palpable in their brisk steps. John and Sarah, having spent the night by the puppy's side, greeted them with a mix of fatigue and anticipation, eager to learn more about the creature they had rescued. Professor Robert, a distinguished figure with a gentle demeanour, approached the cage first. He examined the puppy through the transparent walls with a discerning eye, occasionally jotting down notes on his clipboard. His team set up additional equipment, including a portable scanner and a DNA sampling kit, preparing for a thorough examination right in the clinic's observation room. The action was meticulous and precise. The team worked in harmony, drawing blood samples, conducting scans, and discussing findings in hushed, excited tones. John and Sarah watched intently, their anxiety slowly giving way to fascination as the team's findings began to coalesce into a coherent picture. "You see, this is no ordinary puppy," Professor Robert finally explained, turning to the couple. "The scans and initial DNA tests suggest that what you found is a juvenile babirusa, a type of wild pig, not native to this region, but from far-off tropical forests. It's highly unusual for one to be found here. It must have escaped from captivity." John and Sarah exchanged stunned looks. The revelation that their puppy was actually a rare pig was as bewildering as it was astonishing. "A babirusa," Sarah murmured, her voice a mix of disbelief and wonder. "But how did it end up in our forest?" "That's what we need to figure out," said Professor Robert, his eyes twinkling with the thrill of scientific discovery. "Your find could be quite significant. It's possible it escaped from a zoo or a private collection. We'll need to investigate further." As they were absorbing this news, the clinic's atmosphere shifted abruptly with the arrival of two more visitors. The door opened to reveal a pair of uniformed zoo employees, their expressions tense and concerned. They approached the group quickly, their eyes fixed on the babirusa. "We've been searching everywhere for him," one of the zoo staff explained breathlessly. "He's a recent arrival at our zoo and managed to escape last week through a damaged fence." We didn't realize he'd gone this far. The sudden appearance of the zoo staff added a new layer of urgency to the situation. John and Sarah stood by, their roles unexpectedly shifting from rescuers to key figures in a broader narrative of wildlife conservation and recovery. The clinic room filled with a new sense of purpose as the zoo staff prepared to take the young Babirusa, now affectionately named Buddy, back to his rightful home. John and Sarah watched, a blend of relief and sadness mingling in their expressions as they came to terms with the fact that their brief guardianship was ending. "We'll make sure he's comfortable on the way back," one of the zookeepers assured them as they gently coaxed Buddy into a secure and comfortable animal carrier. "He's been missed terribly. You can't imagine the relief we felt when we got the call." Sarah nodded, her eyes misty. "He's really special," she said softly, her hand lingering on the carrier for a moment longer before letting go. John placed a reassuring arm around her shoulders, feeling the mixed emotions himself. As they followed the zoo staff out to the van, the reality of their adventure settling in, Professor Robert thanked them. "You've done a remarkable thing," he said earnestly. "Finding and saving Buddy has helped us all. Please, come visit him at the zoo anytime. Consider it your second home." The ride to the zoo was quiet, contemplative. John and Sarah watched the scenery blur past, each lost in thoughts about the unexpected journey they had embarked upon from a simple walk in the forest. Upon arrival, they were greeted by the zoo director, who expressed his gratitude with an offer that brought a small smile to their faces. "As a token of our appreciation for your care and quick thinking, we'd like to offer you lifetime passes to the zoo," he announced, handing them a pair of shiny, embossed cards. "You're part of Buddy's story now, and we hope you'll visit him often." The promise of future visits was a balm to their heavy hearts. Walking through the zoo, they watched Buddy being reintroduced to a specially designed enclosure that mimicked his natural habitat. The Babirusa immediately began to explore his surroundings, his snout twitching curiously at everything, a sign of his resilience and adaptability. Watching Buddy adapt so quickly to his new environment, John and Sarah felt a profound sense of closure and satisfaction. They had saved a life, albeit not the one they had expected, and had sparked a series of events that would enhance the knowledge and care of rare species. As they walked hand in hand back to the zoo entrance, the lifetime tickets in their pockets felt like a promise of new adventures to come. Each visit a reminder of the incredible tale they would continue to tell about the day they saved a very unusual friend. With their lifetime zoo passes, John and Sarah became regular visitors at the zoo, each visit deepening their bond with Buddy and enhancing their understanding of wildlife conservation. On sunny afternoons, they often stood by Buddy's enclosure, watching him root around in the mud or lounge in the sun, his peculiar presence now a familiar sight that brought them joy and a sense of peace. Each visit was an opportunity to reflect on the unexpected journey that had started with a simple act of kindness in the forest. "Remember how tiny he was?" Sarah would say, pointing at Buddy, who now roamed his enclosure with confidence. "And how scared we were that first night?" "Yeah," John would reply, his voice tinged with nostalgia. "It's amazing how things turn out. Who would have thought we'd end up here?" These visits also became a chance to share their remarkable story with others. Friends and sometimes curious onlookers listened intently as John and Sarah recounted the tale of the day they found a puppy that turned out to be a rare and exotic Babirusa. Their story, filled with twists and unexpected revelations, never failed to amaze and inspire those who heard it. As they shared their adventure, the impact of their experience became evident. Not only had they saved Buddy, but they had also sparked a greater awareness within their community about the importance of wildlife protection and the unexpected ways individuals can contribute to conservation efforts. Each narration of their tale reaffirmed the significance of their actions and the profound personal transformation they underwent. Their adventure had imbued them with a deeper respect for nature and its mysteries, and a commitment to supporting conservation efforts in more active ways. As they left the zoo at the close of another visit, the couple paused to look back at Buddy, who seemed almost to acknowledge their presence with a contented grunt. Walking away, hand in hand, they felt enriched not just by the experience itself, but by the knowledge that their story, now shared among friends and family, would inspire others to look more closely at the world around them, always ready for the unexpected encounters that might just lead to new adventures.